There's a kind of intelligence that doesn't show up on any test. It doesn't get celebrated in school. It doesn't earn you awards or recognition or a place on any list of high achievers. In fact, for most of the people who have it, it was never called intelligence at all. It was called being too sensitive, too intense, too aware, too much. But psychologists who study trauma and resilience have begun to map something remarkable, a specific form of cognitive and emotional development that emerges in people who experienced significant adversity early in life, a sharpening of certain capacities that only comes from having to navigate difficulty before you had the tools for it. They call it traumatic intelligence, and if you have it, you've probably never heard it described as a strength, until now. Sign number 1. You read rooms instantly. You walk into a space and within seconds you know the emotional temperature. Who is tense? Who is hiding something? Where the unspoken conflict lives. You didn't learn this from a book, you learned it because at some point in your life, reading the room accurately was not a social skill. It was a survival skill. Sign number 2. You can tell when someone is lying, even when you can't explain how. You pick up on micro inconsistencies, the word that doesn't match the tone, the story that's slightly too smooth, the eye contact that's slightly too deliberate. People with traumatic intelligence have been lied to in high-stakes ways, and the nervous system adapted by becoming extraordinarily sensitive to the signals that something is off. Sign number 3. You feel other people's emotions in your body. Not metaphorically, physically. Someone else's anxiety enters the room, and you feel it in your chest before your mind has processed it. Someone's sadness changes the air and you absorb it without deciding to. This is not weakness. This is a nervous system that learned to track the emotional states of the people around it for protection, and became extraordinarily calibrated in the process. Sign number 4. You think about things most people never consider. The conversation beneath the conversation. The reason behind the reason. The long-term consequence of the decision everyone else is celebrating. Traumatic intelligence produces a specific kind of depth, the kind that comes from having had to understand complex human dynamics as a child before you were supposed to need to. Sign number 5. You are extraordinarily loyal but extremely selective about who receives it. Because you know what betrayal costs. You know what it means when trust is broken by someone who was supposed to be safe. And that knowledge didn't make you closed. It made you discerning. The people inside your circle receive something that most people never experience, but the circle is small, intentionally, necessarily small. Sign number 6. You have an unusually high tolerance for complexity and ambiguity. Most people need clear answers, clean narratives, simple explanations. You're comfortable, sometimes more comfortable than most, living in the gray, in the unresolved, in the space where multiple true things exist simultaneously. This is because complexity was your childhood environment. You became fluent in it before you had any choice. Sign number 7. You notice what's missing from a story, not just what's there. Not without pain, not without cost, but with a specific capacity to rebuild, to reorient, to find a new way through that people who haven't been through the things you've been through often find remarkable. This is not luck. This is a resilience that was built through having to use it. Sign number 9. You have a complex relationship with joy. Not because you don't feel it, but because somewhere along the way you learned that good things end. That happiness is something to manage carefully. That allowing yourself to feel fully good opens you to a loss you've already experienced. This hypervigilance around joy is not a flaw, it's a scar. And scars are evidence of healing. Sign number 10. You know yourself in a way that most people don't. Not perfectly, not without blind spots, but with a depth of self-knowledge that comes specifically from having had to examine yourself, your patterns, your triggers, your responses, in order to understand and survive the world you grew up in. Most people never develop this depth because they never needed to. You needed to. And it built something in you that is genuinely rare. Here's what I want to say directly to anyone who recognizes themselves in this list. The intelligence you developed, the room reading, the pattern recognition, the depth of feeling, the capacity for complexity was not free. It came at a cost, and that cost was real, and it deserved better than what you got. But what it built in you is not nothing. It is extraordinary. The world needs people who see clearly, who feel deeply, who understand complexity without flinching, who know what betrayal costs and choose loyalty anyway. That's not damage. That's wisdom. And wisdom, real wisdom, the kind built through experience rather than theory, is the rarest form of intelligence there is. If this named something you've never had language for, you already know what it's pointing at.